Alright, welcome to another episode of our work in progress, in development, behind the scenes, behind the development video. So the last time we covered basically the campfire element, which is one of those favorite elements that I ever did. Now this time we're going to cover one of the other favorites that apparently users like to play around with, which is the baby element. So as you can see right here, I basically just activated my shaded wireframe so you can see the topology and stuff like that. I'm gonna go into the game view and again, the same thing that we talked about applied when we worked on any element is that we check out the triangle count and the verts. Now, we understand that for human elements like a human being or baby element or anything that's kind of like organic, there's a little bit of greater leeway when it comes to the creation of these, if not otherwise. For any kind of other element like a brick or campfire, these are actually kind of too large and high of values to be able to be integrated into like many different versions inside mobile. So again, we did everything in Maya, or I used Maya. There are some of our artists who use other software like Blender. And basically, let's just go through how I imported this into Unity to test it out. So I'm just going to go into meshes, which is where the element is, and this is basically the import that I'm using right now. Now, if I click on this, you can see that there are different tabs here that basically that we do some adjustments to. So as you all might know, there are different software have different units of measurements and value. So Unity measures in a different scale, whilst Maya uses a different scale as well. So I just checked on user file scale for basically most of my elements where it makes sense, in order to ensure that the scale matches in the real world, as well as when it's imported in Unity when I created it in Maya. Now, for those who are not, 3D artists or developers, Maya, Unity, all that might sound mumbo jumbo to you, but basically I'm just saying that when we develop this, we make sure that our scale translates accurately into the Unity software before it's exported out into mobile. So basically we also optimize our meshes, and I'm going to go into rig. Now, since the animation was kind of done in Maya itself, I imported the rig and the animation type was set to generic. Legacy is like the older version, and then generic is basically the usual typical default, and it's all just basically inside here. So once the rig is imported, basically I went in to check the animation and bring this in. So of course, this entire length depends on the timeline of the animation that I have saved in my model that's imported with this mesh. So basically everything all the real work and grunt is done inside the 3D software, and then I'll basically import this into Unity, which is like the integration, the compilation software. So the creation software for 3D and the compilation for basically exporting to mobile or web or something else like that. Okay, so now with that being said, I'm going to look into materials, which is also what usually is brought into Unity and bring forward from the software once I export out from Maya or another 3D software. Now, this particular shader is basically, once again, kind of provided to us by our developers, where we're going to use this to optimize as much as we can in terms of a shader that's more customized for mobile output. Now, of course, now that Create VR is actually also on desktop on Oculus Rift, it still helps to have the optimization if we're talking about world building and creating a lot of elements within that same scene. So same thing, and I have my texture file, which I can click on this and I'll basically go back to my PNG file. Now in Unity, it's either TIFF or PNG, but we kind of stuck to the convention of PNG based on mobile, and usually TIFF, being larger file sizes, is a bit, more taxing when it comes to creating and bringing our elements together inside Unity. Well, anyway, so now I'm going to go back to my assets folder, and basically everything else here is kind of just our workflow processes, our folder naming conventions. Perhaps the one I want to dive deeper into is the XTK folder right here, which basically contains our shader and shader scripts right here that we're using for all our elements inside the game. So for those more techie or geeky people, when you play the game, you can always imagine all these shaders are working together to make it perform optimally and at the same time not compromise too much on graphics, especially on mobile. Alright, so I'm going to basically play this a little bit. Now, if you've discovered the baby elements, you know that there's a little bit of an animation at the start and then it stops, as you can see right here. So how this works is basically this, sleeping start, right? So basically, after I've imported my animation, I have to bring it into Unity to put them all together, and that's how the animation is brought forward into the export in the final game. Now, a little bit of an insight for those who are more curious on the development process and want to actually learn about Unity themselves. Now, if I go to Window and I bring out the Animation tab, you can see that it's a little bit different. Like, not only is the name different, called Animation versus Animator, but at the same time, there's this timeline right here. So I'm just gonna stop this for a moment. And basically, the difference is quite simple. An animator is usually where I bring in all the imported animations, or even if it's just something I created in Unity, and kind of pipe them in together to cause a chain of reaction. While in animation, I basically create the animation within Unity itself. So I'm not even importing them in. I mean, you could, but it's going to be a little bit more complex. But I'm basically creating a very simple animation. Usually, to put it in simple terms, animation, 2D, animator, 3D, and also 2D. So for example, if I click on my baby, you can see all these things right here, all these animatable things. But of course, since I've imported them in from another software, I can't really adjust them here. It's unless I create something new, like a cube in Unity, and then I want to animate it to move from left to right, that I use this animation window. All right, so I'm just going to close this. Okay, and that's really much all I have to say about this, animator versus animation. Click play again. I can basically adjust these anytime I want within the play mode and have it not affect my final output permanently. So for example, when I'm reviewing work, or maybe if I'm just testing out different kinds of animation, I would just basically adjust them here. Speed, for example, I set 10. You can see how quick this is. Whoa. That's a super fast, supersonic baby right there, and all that stuff. And of course, I can also go into my imported file itself, going back to meshes, click on this little arrow, and then I click on the animation, and then I can adjust them right here as well as view it. Now, if you see this weird stuff going on, it's because that's just Unity itself rendering. But yeah, so let's see. Yeah, that's really about it. That's all I have to talk about regarding these animation tools and the baby. I'm gonna go back to shaded. You can see the baby looks really weird without the wireframe, but there you go. So I hope you learned something new and find out a little bit more about how certain elements come to life within Create, and hopefully you guys still enjoy having fun creating what's on your mind.